Bring the lights down low, it's time to show. Lights, camera, you know what we mean. Behold the magic of the silver screen. Some movies rock, some movies shock. They're powerful, alright. We cover them all on your favorite parts. So many movies we can choose. Even when you win, you lose. Life moves pretty fast. Some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math. It's the 30-something movie podcast. Be excellent to each other. Please add a word to your mother. They're from the best decades. Movie magic that never fades. Lightsabers clash, phasers set to stun. Action packed from dusk till dawn. We have deep thoughts and questions free. Come share our love of the movies we see. Life moves pretty fast. Some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math. It's the 30-something movie podcast.
It is the 30-something movie podcast. I am your host, John Reed, and I have come back in time to let you all know that I think things are going to be okay in a few years. I don't know. It's just, maybe that's more wishful thinking.
I'm sure it's going to work out, John.
I'm sure it'll be fine. Pay no attention to the fact that half of my face is missing and I have a robotic arm, but everything's going to be fine in a few years.
Yeah. It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. I'm way off pitch. I'm really sorry to all you vocalists out there.
Yeah.
And all the band directors out there just like, my God, that guy has no pitch. How does he sing and all that? I'm sorry. I got put on the spot. I wasn't ready.
That's all right. It's all right. But yes, I am your host, John Reed, and I'm here about some monkeys. 12 of them, to be precise. My fellow time traveler here, Pat Canigallo. Pat, how are you doing?
Hey. Doing great, John. Doing great.
Good. Well, school is over for the year, so I think we've had, everybody's had a little bit of a chance to breathe now.
School's out for the summer.
Yeah. As Chancellor, no, not Chancellor. What was his name? Chang.
Palpatine?
Wasn't Chancellor. What was Chang's name? Or what was his rank?
General
Chang. As General Chang said, we need breathing room.
Earth. Hitler, 1938. Earth, yeah. Hitler, 1938.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon. And then you get that great shot of Leonard Nimoy like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Captain, you are messing this up.
What did you
That
just
was
say?
such a great Leonard Nimoy. That whole dinner conversation and Leonard Nimoy looked like, whoa. That was so... And I appreciate that more every time I watch it. That whole dinner scene, and like I said, that Kirk's quick, and then Leonard Nimoy, yeah, I love it. I love all of it.
There's some families that appreciate that scene more every time they go to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because it's roughly along the same lines.
Yep.
That movie was I flipping through, so we don't have cable anymore, but I was flipping through some of the channels on Tubi TV and Pluto TV, some of those where you can still get almost like TV channels.
Yeah.
And there is a channel where they've been nonstop showing all the Star Trek movies.
Good.
And a couple of days ago, it fell on First Contact, so I was watching a little bit of that. And then last night, for just a little bit, it was actually in the middle of that scene in Star Trek 6. And so I was like, oh, gotta watch this a little bit.
Yeah.
And then of course, when we phaser the mashed potatoes,
it would set off the alarm. That is so great.
Yeah. Well, we are here to talk about, that's not a time travel movie. First Contact was a time travel movie, but we're here to talk about a time travel movie. We're here to talk about a time travel / viral apocalypse / weird, quirky Terry Gilliam movie.
Yeah, we are.
We're here for 12 Monkeys.
We are here for 12 monkeys.
So, spoiler alert, we spoil freely here. So if we mention a movie and you don't want to hear about it, maybe just hit that skip button once or twice, and then we've probably got it out of our system at that point. Make sure you visit our website, 30podcast.com. You can leave us a rating, a voicemail. You can become a co-executive producer via Patreon. You could join for free over on Patreon, and you can get some of our episodes there for free, but any amount of support over there, and it really does help out to help cover some of the costs of doing the show. And so we really, really appreciate we have a dedicated group of co-executive producers over there, and thank you so much to them. It really means a lot to us that you're enjoying the show and you are willing to support in that way. And I was very excited. We had a couple of new folks within the last several months or so, and I was able to finally get them out their own 30 podcast t-shirts. So
Oh, cool.
thank
you, guys.
So people will be walking the streets of California and Canada and all kinds of other places repping the podcast.
Nice.
So
Thank you, guys.
yeah. So let's see what else we got going on. I think, yeah, we're going to talk. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about. I'm going to ask you a quick question, and then we'll circle back maybe in just a little bit. Have you ever watched the 12 Monkeys TV show?
No, I have
No.
not.
Okay. Did you know it existed?
No, I have not.
Oh, Pat.
No, I did not. I'm sorry.
Oh, Pat. Okay. We're going to talk about that in a little bit then,
Let us discuss.
because I think it's phenomenal.
Really?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
look forward to the discussion.
And I believe that, and I'm basing this only off of, I'm kind of basing this only off of some early conversations we've had about certain things, Terry Gilliam-esque, is that
Mhm.
if some of the Terry Gilliam hallmarks are a bit much, I know when we talked about back 10 years ago when we talked about Brazil, and we're going to talk about this one, it's almost a completely different. I mean, it still has some of the same characters and some of the same initial ideas, but it
Mhm.
doesn't have, I would say it doesn't have some of the Terry Gilliam quirkiness. So if some of that is like, yeah, I can take or leave some of his quirkiness in the movie, then the show is stylistically very different.
Okay.
So it's more like kind of a straight up sci-fi show.
Okay.
Which
Cool.
which
Where would I find this show?
I think you would enjoy. I got to go look because I don't know exactly where it's streaming. I want to say I even maybe just checked out the DVDs from the library.
Okay, so it's an older show.
It's only a few years old. I want to say, did
okay.
it end in 2018?
Okay.
2019? How many seasons did it have? I think it had 4. Oh, yeah, it had 4 seasons. It started in 2015, and it gets on a lot of the different sites like Rotten Tomatoes. The series gets an 88%. There's an app that I use sometimes to find where things are playing called Just Watch. On Just Watch, it gets a 90%.
Oh, wow.
And it's like your typical modern TV show. It's each season is anywhere from 10 to 13 episodes. They're about 43 minutes apiece.
Okay.
But I think we'll dive into that a little bit later, and I can tell you a little bit more about it. But I will say, just right up front, it really plays on more of the time travel piece than it does the virus piece.
Okay.
Whereas I think the movie plays up more the virus piece, and the time travel is a part of it. The mystery that they're investigating has more to do with the virus.
Got it.
But in the TV show, it's really like there's other peripheral things going on, and time travel is a much bigger piece of the story in the TV show.
Got it.
But yeah, no, I think you'd actually really enjoy the TV show.
Okay. Very cool.
So, all right. Well, this one came out on December 29th, 1995, rated R, with a runtime of 2 hours and 9 minutes, directed by Terry Gilliam, who did Brazil and The Fisher King. Writers were David Peoples and Janet Peoples. David did Blade Runner and Unforgiven. Janet did The Day After Trinity. Producers were Charles Roven, who did The Dark Knight and Wonder Woman. Composer was Paul Buckmaster. He did The Man Who Fell to Earth and The Italian Job. Cinematographer was Roger Pratt. He did Batman and Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Editor was Mick Audsley, did Dangerous Liaisons and Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Production company was Atlas Entertainment and Classico Entertainment. Budget was $29.5 million. Box office was $168.8 million. So even a quirky little movie, when you put Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt in the as some of the leads in the movie. Apparently, you get a bunch of money back.
Yeah, no kidding.
Who would have thought? Flickmetrics gives it a 79%, and CinemaScore gives it a B. Bruce Willis plays James Cole. He was in Die Hard and The Sixth Sense. Madeleine Stowe was Dr. Catherine Rayleigh. She was in The Last of the Mohicans, and thankfully he did find her. She was also in Blink. Brad Pitt was Jeffrey Goins. He was in Fight Club and Seven. Christopher Plummer, who passed in 2021, played Dr. Leland Goins. He was in The Sound of Music and Beginners. David Morse was Dr. Peters. He was in The Green Mile and The Rock. John Seda plays Jose. He was in Selena and Primal Fear. Christopher Maloney was Lieutenant Halperin. He was in Law & Order SVU and Man of Steel. Joey Perillo was Detective Frankie. He was in The Sixth Sense and Philadelphia. Lisa Gay Hamilton was Teddy. She was in The Practice and Jackie Brown. Matt Ross was B. Was in American Psycho and Silicon Valley. Annie Golden was the woman cabbie. She was in Orange is the New Black and Hair. And Michael Chance was Scarface. He was in Route 666 and The Paradigm Shift. Just a couple of quick little trivia type things here. Some interesting stuff about kind of Terry Gilliam himself. He actually, he did a couple of things that were kind of interesting on the set of this. He was a little concerned at first that Brad Pitt, wouldn't be right for the part. And again, this is kind of at the point where Brad Pitt is not necessarily the, he's not the big time actor that he is now. He's been in a few roles before this, but Terry Gilliam was not 100% sure that Brad Pitt was going to be the right pick for this. And so basically he sent him some like speech coaches, and he's like, look, I need you to act all crazy. I need you to talk fast. I need you to do all this stuff. I'm going to send you to a speech coach because I don't think you can do this. And so apparently there were a few times where Terry Gilliam was a little heavy-handed with some of the actors.
Okay.
Yeah. And at another point in time, he wrote down and gave Bruce Willis a list. He's like, look, here are some things. I've watched your other movies. Here are things you always do. I don't want you to do them.
Do we know what any of the things were on this list?
The one that's listed here is specifically the steely blue eyes look.
I've got this look. It's called blue steel.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
What is this? A time travel machine made for ants?
So I'm curious, and I know I should know this, and I'm sorry. What were other things that Terry Gilliam did? Obviously, Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
What other things was he involved with?
Yeah, Brazil, The Fisher King. He was in Monty Python.
Okay, so I guess that was my question. He is in Monty Python.
Yes. Yeah, okay. In fact, he directed Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He did a lot of the writing, and I want to say he did all of the, it's like the crazy animations you see in Monty Python with like the things that are like cut out and moving, and he did a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah, he directed, if you remember the movie Time Bandits from 1981, he directed that. I remember as a kid watching this like weird, crazy version of Alice in Wonderland. And it was actually directed by him. Michael Palin is also in it. It's called Jabberwocky. I remember watching that as a kid and being like, okay, this is not at all like the Disney cartoon. This is kind of weird and creepy and quirky. And so what I know of I've actually seen several of his things. So Monty Python, the Holy Grail, Jabberwocky, Time Bandits. We watched Brazil. That was one of the first, within like the first 20 episodes of the podcast. He did. I don't know if you remember. This one was a few years ago now. He did The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
Yep, loved it.
Did that one. He did The Fisher King.
So
he did 12.
I'm interrupting. Yeah. I'm totally scared. Keep going.
Go for it.
I'm sorry.
Well, so he did, and then 12 Monkeys, and then his next one after 12 Monkeys, which we will do in a few years, was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And then beyond that, I don't think I've seen. No, I have not seen any of his movies after 12 Monkeys, because I don't believe I've seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That's the one with Johnny Depp. Yes, Johnny Depp, Benicio del Toro is in that. It was based on a piece by Hunter S. Thompson. That one I have not seen. And then there's a bunch of others on here. The Brothers Grimm, Tideland, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus.
So the Hunter S. Thompson. That's the Hunter S. Thompson, right?
Yeah.
See, why can't they do something? He wrote, okay, here's just the total random thing. He wrote this famous article about riding a Ducati motorcycle.
Yeah.
And I think it was called like The Voyage of the Sausage Creature or something like that.
That sounds right.
That is what the movie should be. That's what I'm just saying. That is what we should be basing our movies off of.
Uh-huh.
All right. Hang on
Song
one
of the,
second
what was
here,
it?
Mr.
Song of
Reed.
the
I need to
Sausage
step
Creature?
away. What? Say, go ahead.
I think it was called Song of the Sausage Creature.
That is correct.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So yeah, and a couple other trivia things here and there. So he was, and here was one that I didn't even realize until not that long ago, is that Terry Gilliam is actually not British.
Oh.
Like,
Oh.
I always just associate every single one of the Monty Python guys as being British. And he, now, in the last several years or so, he has renounced his American citizenship and is a British citizen.
Okay.
But he was actually born in Minnesota.
Oh.
So.
The game's afoot.
Uh-huh. So, yeah. So, yeah, at this point, I mean, a couple of other things related to this movie, the trivia in this movie. Brad Pitt, I think I mentioned before, at this point, he was kind of an up-and-coming actor. Like, he hadn't necessarily hit his big stride just yet, but he had, at this point, he had been in Interview with the Vampire. He'd been in Legends of the Fall. I believe 7 was made before this one, so he had been in 7. So this is like right around the time that he was really kind of hitting his peak, like getting to the point where you've got this string of movies that Brad Pitt has been in. And the trivia in here does say that on this movie, compared to kind of what he might have been pulling for some others, he did sign on to do this movie for a fairly small salary comparatively, because he was not like top Hollywood billing at this point, but he was getting there.
So was Terry Gilliam, and this was kind of my original question, and I'm totally thrown off the whole what everyone's known for, blah, blah, blah. But was Terry Gilliam known for being rather controlling? Because, there's some directors that are just like, get in there and freewheel. And then there's some directors that are just like, you will read every line on the script and deliver it the way I want, or else, was he known for that? Or was that just in this case? And what information do we have on that?
So I think he was. I mean, I think you could refer to him as meticulously hands-on.
Okay.
So, I mean, he was, I want to say he was pretty protective of his artistic vision. Like, if he couldn't do what he wanted to do, if he couldn't make Brazil the quirky movie, I mean, he's known for, we've talked before about, the off-kilter camera angles, the Dutch angles that we've talked about for years on this podcast. In fact, Brazil might have been the first time we talked about him, but he's known for that. Like, that's his, the off-kilter camera angle stuff. Sometimes just the weird, quirky dialogue and the ways that you're kind of playing with insanity or the appearance of it, and how the world is kind of an insane place. And so you get a lot of that. You get a lot of that in Brazil. You get a lot of that in The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Like, how much of this story is he telling? Like, some of it seems to be based in reality, but it seems so ridiculous that it can't possibly be all real. But then you get moments in the movie where like, well, but then how does he have this item, or how does he have evidence of this if that story wasn't real? He plays a lot with that. Like, everything, a lot of his stories are very satirical, very surreal. And so I think that vision comes across pretty consistently in so many of his movies, that I think he probably did have to have a fairly heavy hand of control over what are the sets going to look like? What are the costumes going to look like? What's the editing, the performances, I want you to do it this way. And I think with the actors, even Bruce Willis, who, would have been, getting top dollar at this point in terms of Hollywood movies, he basically was like, look, I need you to play this way. If you're going to be in my movie, I need you to play this as if you're not the hero. Like, you're not crawling through viaducts. You're not shooting up bad guys. You're not the action hero in this movie. you are a man who has been beaten down and he is psychologically unsure of whether something is real or not, or whether the voices he's hearing are from the past or the future or the whatever.
Mm.
So yeah, I think, and if I remember correctly, I think some of like the making of the Adventures of Baron Munchausen was fairly chaotic and over budget, if I'm remembering correctly. And so some of that got a little crazy because he just insisted on, we have to get this right. Like, I don't care about the costs. I don't care about this. It's got to be right. It's my vision. It's got to be my vision. So I think I wouldn't go so far as to call him a tyrant, but I think, and he's very loyal to the people that he works with. I mean, you do see a bunch of different actors, work with him pretty regularly. And while it might be a bit of a challenge working with him at the time, he is pretty consistently praised as, the experience of working on a crazy project like this, or a bold project like this. The actors and the other people, at least from what I've read, tend to talk about the positives.
Okay.
So yes, I would say he's very imaginative, he's very creative, but I think, his control, I don't know. Obviously, not knowing him personally, I don't know that I necessarily want to say too much, but I would assume, based on what I've read, what I've heard, is that he's doing it for the integrity of his artistic vision and not necessarily micromanaging people out of a sense of a strong ego.
Gotcha.
So now you can argue like, where does the artistic vision begin and the ego begins, and where do they end, and how do they overlap? And you could argue that, I'm sure, but that's just the sense I get, is that he's got a very strong vision in mind for what he wants the art to be and to become, and this is what's got to happen. And it's not necessarily because it's, him.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my guess.
Got it.
So really, really quickly, before we dive too much further, I did actually get a chance. This was on, I don't know if have you ever used the Canopy app to watch anything?
I have not.
Okay. So the Canopy app, you can get it tied into your local library. So if you got a library
Okay.
card for your local library, a lot of libraries, you can tie your account into this, and they give you, if I remember correctly, you get like a certain number of movie tickets each month that you
Oh.
can use. And they have like a collection of movies that are available on the Canopy app. And sometimes they're maybe a little bit more cultural and artistic, and you're not necessarily going to find Paul Blart Mall Cop on Canopy,
Of course.
but and there may be some of those, kind of, maybe a little bit on there, but not a little bit more on the educational and cultural and stuff you might find on the Criterion collection. We'll put it that way.
Okay. All right. I'm with you.
And so, but it's free because you can, you sign up through your library. And so what I was able to find was, and this apparently has been a very influential movie to a lot of different directors, but there is a French movie, and even though I took French, I'm worried I'm going to mispronounce this. La Jetée is the name of it.
Mhm.
And it is about, I want to say it's like half an hour long. It's from the 1960s, directed
Okay.
by a French director, Chris Marker. And he basically, it's a very similar story to 12 Monkeys. And that's kind of what
Oh.
inspired the 12 Monkeys movie. And it won a prize for, won some prizes for being a influential short film. A lot of directors have talked about how much it influenced them. And so basically what this movie is, and it was really interesting to watch, it is not, for the most part, it is not moving video at all.
Oh.
It's a series of photographs, and it's a narrator, it's some actors speaking, it's sound effects, it's all kinds of other stuff over it's basically like a photo journal. And the
Okay.
photos occasionally will kind of fade in and out of each other, and a little bit, maybe not quite in the same way that Ken Burns, had his Ken Burns effect, where you'd kind of zoom in and make it look like the photos had some life or movement to them. But it's entirely, the whole half-hour movie is entirely done in still photos. And the story is basically, it's after World War III. It's post-apocalyptic Paris, and the survivors live underground. And scientists are researching time travel, hoping to send back some test subjects to different time periods to try to find a way to help the people of post-World War III Paris and try to kind of help them recover. And there are some scenes in this where it's almost like, as they're researching the time travel and trying to send people back in time, scenes where they've got these guys like hooked up to machines and blindfolded, and it almost looks stylistically very, very similar to some of the stuff you see in 12 Monkeys when they've got, Bruce Willis is in his cage and he's kind of been, tied up a bit, or they're getting ready to experiment on him to see if he can survive the time travel and stuff like that. It was a really interesting, it's very different, but a really interesting little movie, and it's only 28 minutes long. So if anybody has the Canopy app and they want to go check it out, that was how I was able to find it. I don't know how much those movies are available everywhere, or if it's just my particular local public library system that has that movie available in it. So, but it's there in case you want. And then there were a bunch of things that I was able to find online. Bunch of different directors have said that French movie, that short film, was very influential for them as part of their experimentation when they were young filmmakers. So
that's very interesting. And pulling back the curtain, I know that at some point in the next couple of weeks, we are going to release, and later tonight, we are going to record. And probably coming into that discussion is going to be, how do movies influence other movies?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so without exposing that too much, however, sneak peek, check out our episode on Repo Man, or our re-release of Repo Man for the spoiler of that discussion, or for, I shouldn't say the spoiler, the continuation of that discussion. But I could see that. I could see where you're describing like what we see in 12 Monkeys, and then what you just described to me, which sounds fascinating. But I could be like, okay, I could see how that would be influential.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And another great franchise that I love, The Matrix.
Yeah.
Was it Dark City?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I could see how that had an influence on it.
Yeah.
Conceptually, and then obviously there's like that goes all the way down to Easter eggs or nods in terms of scenes that have influence, and blah, 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 blah. It goes from there. But like of what you're describing, I can totally understand and appreciate. Okay, I could see how that type of a story had an influence in how they made this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. I don't think I have too many other. That's probably it for the trivia pieces. So we'll do a quick synopsis of this one. We'll play the trailer audio for you, and then major moments, 10 major moments that we've broken this down to kind of like, it hops around a bit in time. So we'll cover the major moments as best we can to make sure we've got the timeline correct. And then from there, we'll dive into some of our deeper thoughts and talk a little bit more about it. So in a future ravaged by a deadly virus, convict James Cole is sent back in time to uncover its origins. As he navigates a world teetering on the brink, he encounters psychiatrist Dr. Catherine Rayleigh and the enigmatic Jeffrey Goins. Together, they unravel a conspiracy that could change the fate of humanity.
You're a very good observer, Cole.
We have a very advanced program, something very different.
An opportunity to reduce your sentence considerably.
And possibly play an important role in returning the human race to the surface of the Earth.
No license, no prints, no warrants. Take him down! Well, he took on 5 cops like he was dusted to the eyeballs.
What year is this?
What year do you think it is?
1996.
That's the future, James. Do you think you're living in the future?
I'm simply trying to gather information to help the people in the present trace the path of the virus.
We're not in the present now.
This is a place for crazy people.
I'm not saying you're not mentally ill. For all I know, you're crazy as a loon.
The army of the 12 monkeys, they're the ones that spread the virus.
Monkeys.
He's been living in a meticulously constructed fantasy world, and that world is starting to disintegrate.
You haven't become addicted to that dying world?
No, sir.
He needs help.
I think I'm crazy when people start dying next month. I don't belong here.
You're here because of the system.
I know some things that you don't know.
Yes, my son.
You sent me to the wrong year.
You're certain of that?
Science ain't an exact science.
You had a bullet from World War I in your leg, James. How did it get there?
I don't know.
You're a trained psychiatrist. You know the difference between what's real and what's not.
You said that I had delusions. You said you could explain.
I'm trying to.
I want the future to be unknown.
I can help you. Get you out.
You can't hide from them. Don't even try.
We're all monkeys.
The thing mutates. We live underground.
They're watching you.
I just want to do my part to get us back on top, in charge of the planet.
All right. So major moments for this one. We're going to start off in the plague-ravaged future of 2035. Hey, that's only 10 years away. So exciting.
It is upon us.
Yeah. It is kind of funny when you look back in time, and especially when I was a kid and I was thinking about, man, Terminator, those future scenes are supposed to take place in like 2029. Like, that's a really long time from now. Uh-huh. Yeah, sure, kid.
When will then be now?
When will then be? 4 years is when then will be now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Humanity has been decimated by a virus that was released in 1996, forcing survivors underground. Prisoner James Cole is chosen for a mission to travel back in time to locate the original virus sample so that scientists can develop a cure. There's a bit of a miscalculation because the scientists were basically sitting around trying to develop the time machine, and there's one thing that they didn't take into consideration.
It was my understanding that there would be no math.
And so they got their math wrong. Apparently in 2035, they've put John Reed in charge of figuring out the time jumps.
Yeah.
And that's why the math is not mathing, and they miscalculate it, and they send him back to 1990 instead of 1996. So he arrives in 1990, he's arrested, he's institutionalized, diagnosed by Dr. Catherine Rayleigh. He meets the erratic Jeffrey Goins, played by Brad Pitt, who is espousing some radical views, but he's in an insane asylum, so we probably don't think too much about that. He's just a quirky character. Cole tries to warn of the future pandemic, but is basically dismissed as being delusional. He then returns back to 2035. After a failed escape, Cole is pulled back to the future. He's pulled back to the future. Scientists show him a voicemail linking the virus to the army of the 12 monkeys and some photos, including Goins. Cole is then sent back again, briefly landing in World War I, so apparently same guy that did the math the first time, where he's wounded, shot in the leg, before being redirected to 1996. In 1996, Dr. Rayleigh lectures on the Cassandra complex and meets Dr. Peters, who voices some apocalyptic views while getting his little book signed. Cole kidnaps Rayleigh to get to Philadelphia, where they pursue the army of the 12 monkeys and trace its origins to Jeffrey Goins. Cole confronts Goins, who denies any role in the virus, and claims Cole gave him the idea in 1990 to start the army of the 12 monkeys. So this reversal sows a bit of doubt in Cole, especially when Goins attributes the origin of the virus idea to Cole's earlier rantings. So then you've got a little bit of the chicken and the egg. Like, was there a virus before Cole was sent back in time and gave him the idea for the virus?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the snake eating its own tail? Who knows? So transported back to 2035 again, Cole reaffirms his mission. Once back in 1996, he starts to doubt his own sanity a bit. Rayleigh, now convinced of his truth, shows him World War I photographs proving that he was actually there. They decide to abandon the mission and flee to the Florida Keys. Cole and Rayleigh learn of the Army's true motive, and it was merely symbolic. There is no virus at all that they are dealing with. They are releasing zoo animals and they locked Dr. Goines, Jeffrey Goines' father, in a cage. They are not bioterrorists. So realizing that they've misidentified the threat, Cole leaves a voicemail for the scientist in the future, announcing that he is quitting the mission. At the airport, Cole and Rayleigh plan to escape. Jose, who Cole knows from the future, appears and hands Cole a gun, reminding him of his orders. Rayleigh then spots Dr. Peters, a Goines lab assistant, boarding a plane bound for cities that match the outbreak timeline. Cole rushes after Peters, forcing his way through security. Before he can stop him, though, Cole is fatally shot by police. As he dies in Rayleigh's arms, a young James Cole witnesses the scene, cementing the recurring dream that haunted him for years. Dr. Peters sits next to a woman on the plane, revealed to be a future scientist, one of the ones who sends Cole back in time, and she cryptically states that she works in insurance. The boy Cole watches the plane depart, ensuring the time loop that led to his adult self mission and death will begin again. That's a lot of stuff.
I love everything about it.
There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, there is.
I'm sure we've got some deeper thoughts. So let's hop in this weird and wacky time machine and see what deeper thoughts we have.
And now, Deep Thoughts.
I have an opinion on this matter.
Don't mince words, Bones. What do you really think?
I like it a lot.
Wow. It's very deep. Thank you.
Okay. Initial question. Do you like this movie, and when was the first time you saw it?
John, I love this movie, and I think the first time I saw it was college.
Okay.
And I think the reason this might have only been the second time I've seen the movie.
Okay.
Because there was enough that I'm like, hey, how did this go? But I remembered it. It stuck with me. It stuck with me, John, like comfort food. I want to say I saw it in college.
I love the music of the 20th century.
Yeah, there it is. I want to say I saw it in college.
Okay.
Which would have been like, oh wait, this is 1995.
Yeah.
I can't be that old. Okay, so college was only a year or two after this movie came out. So I don't think I saw it the initial run. I think it was later when someone was like, dude, you got to see 12 Monkeys. And so here's my charting of the course with that. I saw the cover, and the cover gave me like horror movie vibes.
Yeah.
Like I looked at it and it was like, dang, this looks like a little bit like 12 Monkeys. And I probably had it like mixed up with other trailers. So I was like, at that point still like horror, any kind, any form was just not my jam. So I'm like, I really don't want to see any of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I kind of avoided it. And then when I was talking about it, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to see something and be scared. No, 12 Monkeys, that's not what it's about. You got to check it out. Okay, I'll check it out. Oh, Terry Gilliam did it. Now, back in college, I still didn't know much about like Brazil and Baron Munchausen and all that kind of thing. But I did know Monty Python, and people were like, oh, well, this is the guy, he does Monty Python. And so I kind of expected like wacky, right?
Yeah.
And the best part of it was like, not only was it not horror, okay, different than what I expected. I watched it and it's like, okay, this really isn't what I would call like Monty Python comedy, or even like, now later, once I've seen Brazil and so forth.
Yeah.
It's really just really good sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. So I love the movie. That was my experience with it. And this is one that as soon as I watched it for the pod, I'm kind of like, I really need to like, stop, rewind, and watch it all again. Like it really, really, really is in my humble opinion, it's just really good sci-fi.
Yeah. 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 I think it does. The best sci-fi really is kind of more about making a comment about, society, or almost some kind of like life lesson that you can learn. I think some of the best sci-fi does that. Sometimes early Star Trek does a great job of that. Sometimes maybe it's a little heavy-handed moralizing in some places, but when sci-fi is done well, I think that's one of the things that sci-fi is able to do in much the same way satirical stories. It's easier, I don't say it's easier, but maybe it's better, more effective to criticize Russia if it's a bunch of farm animals.
Mm-hmm.
That's satire works that way. Satire, it's much more powerful when you handle it that way. And I think sci-fi does the same thing in terms of kind of, having us look at the reflection of humanity in the mirror and kind of see like, okay, well, it's easier for me to look at it. I'm not going to take this as criticism as much because it's sci-fi, it's otherworldly. It's, they're not talking about me, but at the same time, yes, they are talking about you. And if you really and truly look just even slightly below the surface, that message is there. And I think that's one of the ways when sci-fi is done well, and let's call it brainy sci-fi, because there's some sci-fi that's just, shoot 'em up, laser blasts, explosions, aliens and stuff like that, and green women. There is some sci-fi that is that, and that's fine. But I think the sci-fi that's done well, you mentioned Dark City earlier. I think Dark City, I think it's a bit rough to watch, but things like A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
There's some really good sci-fi that makes you think. And I think that's one of the things that this movie does well. And I think if you're looking for an underlying message to this one, it's, all right, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think one of the underlying messages, but in a very different way than the Aliens movies, is even when you win, you lose. I know that kind of becomes my little thing. I need to put that on a t-shirt is what I need to do. At this point. I'm going to do that. And then I was listening to an earlier episode from like, oh gosh, it was maybe like 8 years ago, 7 years ago, or no, maybe not even that long ago. Whatever it was several years ago. And I forget which movie we were talking about, but I made a comment and I said, well, the 30-something movie podcast, we're nothing if not wrong. And I thought, oh, that'd be good on a t-shirt too. That could be the little subtitle of the 30-something podcast. We're nothing if not wrong. No.
Nice.
I think one of the things, the idea of even when you win, you lose, in this one, it's more along the lines of he spends so much time trying to figure out the past that it kind of gets in the way, at least for the first half of the movie, it gets in the way of him enjoying his present. Like he's kind of falling for Dr. Rayleigh. And they have the opportunity to be happy together. In fact, in the end, that's their idea. They're going to run off and they're going to escape to the Florida Keys. And because they've kind of realized, well, we're starting back at square one. The army of the 12 monkeys, all of our leads have dried up because they're just a bunch of, weirdos that are breaking animals out of cages at the zoo. They're not international bioterrorists. So what have we even got? Like, we don't have any other information. And if you go back to the future again, who's to say they're going to send you back? Like they've kind of doubted your commitment to time travel, sparkle motion up to this point. And so who knows if you get to come back again. So I may never see you again. So let's just run off to the Florida Keys and let's just be happy. Clearly the world's going to end. We've only got a little bit of time left. Let's just be happy in the present. And they don't get to that point until the very, very end of the movie. And so I think one of the things you could take away from this movie is you're not going to change the past. So maybe enjoy the present. That's kind of what I take away from this one. If you go for a little bit of a deeper meaning underneath this, that's the deeper meaning I come away with in this one, is that everything he does, in fact, he even says straight up at the beginning, I'm not here to change the past. Like, I'm not here to stop them from unleashing this. I'm here to bring back evidence. I'm here to bring back information so that the people in 2035 can figure out a way for us to go back to the surface. But I'm not here in 1996 to, kill baby Hitler and make sure that this never happens. I don't know that I can do that. I don't know that I can change time like that. I'm just here to gather information and bring it back so that we can move forward in 2035. So I think that whole idea of even when you win, you lose, even when he's gathering this information, even when the time travel is successful, he's able to track down Jeffrey Goins. He's able to track down the army of the 12 monkeys, but then he loses because it turns out they had nothing to do with it at all. And so all leads have dried up. All information he has, no good anymore. So at that point, we're at almost the very end of the movie, and it's like, well, it's a bleak, brutal world anyway, so let's just enjoy what time we have. But I think being able to share a message like that is something that sci-fi does uniquely well.
Yeah. And then my question was, well, he found out that the army of the 12 monkeys didn't do it, but they know who did, right? Wasn't that him at the end? Didn't they give him the gun? Wasn't that what he was trying to do, is to stop that other guy?
Well, so the only thing they knew was they knew that something. So Jose had given him the gun. He's like, well, you know what your mission is. You got to stop. Like you gotta stop this. You got to figure this out. So here, take this gun. We got your message. Yeah, we know it's not them, but we know it happens here at the airport.
Okay.
And so that's when he kind of gives him the gun. He's like, look, you still got your mission. You got to carry on with this mission. And so one of the things, and I know we're jumping around a little bit, but one of the things about that kind of very end of the movie part of it is, I think they know enough about knowing where it starts, but they don't necessarily know anything beyond that. And the only person who does seem to know is Dr. Rayleigh, because she recognizes the guy and she's like, that's that guy that talked to me that one time about weird, like end of the world kind of stuff. So it's probably him. And so that's when, Cole kind of finally realizes, like, well, look, maybe I can stop this. And so that's when he starts to take off after him. But then that's when he gets gunned down by the police and the security in the airport. So one thing I've always wondered, and I didn't really catch too much until watching it this time around, is when Dr. Peters gets on the plane and sits down, and he sits down next to the woman who in the future will be one of the scientists who sends Cole back in time. And she says she works in insurance. Watching it this time around, I'm thinking, wait a minute. Is she from... Hold on.
I think I know where you're going for this.
Is she from the future, and the insurance is... And this is where it gets my brain all in like a cinnamon twist. Is she from the future... Is this past her, who, yes, maybe worked in insurance, and then at some point in the future, she becomes a scientist and is able to help with the time travel stuff, and she's helping run the underground society and all of that, and she has no clue who she's sitting next to? Or is this one of the scientists from the future, and the insurance is that she's going to come back and she's going to stop him on the plane so that this virus does not spread anymore, and thereby they save the future and time changes? Or is there some other weird, crazy twist where she's, quote unquote, insurance, and she's there to make sure that the virus does actually go off where it's supposed to go, and thereby making the future where she's one of the people that's in charge and they're trying to figure all this stuff out. Like, they're just going to let things roll anyway because they figure, well, it's kind of a lost cause. We're going to try to start things back up in 2035. I need to make sure that time runs the course that it should have run anyway. So that little comment of, I work in insurance, had me thinking 3 different possible timelines or outcomes from that.
Interesting.
Which is why I love movies like this, because you've thought so much about it that you can take a singular line like that and you can go, okay, well, this is like 3 completely different routes we can take with this. I say all that to say, I never even said whether I like this movie, and when I saw it for the first time, yes, I love this movie. Any time travel movies, I love time travel movies. This was, I think I also saw it in college. This was kind of around the same time that I saw Fight Club for the first time. I saw Seven for the first time. I was on a little bit of like a Brad Pitt kick where I had seen Fight Club. I think I saw Fight Club first. And then I was like, I like this guy. Let's find more of his stuff. And then I think after that, I ended up watching, I don't remember in what order, but after Fight Club, I think I ended up watching 7, 12 Monkeys, and then Interview with the Vampire. And so like right around this whole stretch of time, I kind of did a little Brad Pitt movie marathon and fell on this one. And it reminded me so much. I don't think I made the connection at that point in college, but there were things about this that reminded me so much of the Baron Munchausen movie. I'm like, this is weird. This is quirky. This is like, the camera angles are a little weird. The way people are acting is a little weird. Even some of the dialogue is a little weird and quirky. And I think it probably would have been at least a few years later that I would have made the connection of, oh, same dude. Okay. Well, that totally makes sense now. But yes, really, really enjoyed this the first time I've seen it. I've seen this probably, I don't know, half a dozen times at least. But yeah, it's in my rotation of movies. In fact, it is one of the movies that I have invested in getting the Arrow Video special collector's 4K Blu-ray copy of it. So
see,
it is not just a movie that I enjoy, but it is a movie that I enjoy so much that I will buy it on the highest quality copy of physical media I can find.
Right. It's funny. I also, the other thing I was thinking of when you said, she's in insurance, what made her eligible to be a scientist, one of the leaders in the future?
Right.
Like, and maybe you'd already said this in one of your outcomes, but it's kind of like the cynical, well, how did she become a leader? She doesn't have any training in this. It's not, why? Maybe a commentary of who we put in charge and had the future. Like, she was supposed to be the expert, right? Like, because wasn't Bruce Willis like a criminal?
Yep.
But then who's leading the? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Am I explaining it correctly?
Yep.
Like that was I'm actually thinking of all your outcomes. Like, oh yeah, insurance. Yeah, she's going to take this guy out. Okay, I can't see, and that's the closest to the happy ending. So that's the one I want to believe.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I want to be like, okay, they're gonna solve this problem.
Well, and that's, to your point, that's the funny thing about these scientists is they don't seem like very good scientists.
Well, that would go along with kind of what I was thinking with the insurance. Like, okay, so you're in insurance,
she was the one.
Well, we'll just put you in charge.
Yeah, I bet she was the one that was calculating the time jumps, and that's why he kept, he was off by, 6 years and then 50 years or more than 50 years.
Okay, future boy, who's the president in 1985? Ronald Reagan, the actor. What was? Yeah. So I mean, so that's an interesting thing. I think it also could be like a commentary on, you got pawns, you got cannon fodder. I mean, basically you've got the criminal, Bruce Willis, who is the character that we, becomes the everyman character. And he ends up being cannon fodder because they just go and they send the insurance person out. If one of our hypothetical plot lines is confirmed, he's the one that goes and sacrifices himself just so they can come and clean it all up and stop this guy. Yeah, it's very interesting movie, very intriguing.
And I'm trying to remember, I don't believe they ever explicitly say what Cole is guilty of. Like, he's a criminal and he's incarcerated. And I want to say that do they say that he has like violent behavior disorder or a history of violence? But they don't want to say exactly what. Like, what kind of violence? Like, because he doesn't seem like, just as a human being, he doesn't seem like a violent person. But was he like resisting an authority that was not a good authority? Is he in somebody else's world? Would he be a hero rather than a prisoner?
Right.
So what kind of crime is he guilty of? But like you're saying, he's just being used as a pawn. Like these quote unquote scientists who may or may not be actual scientists, they just kind of gave themselves that title. They're just like, oh, good. Well, we've got some quote unquote criminals here, and they're expendable. So sure, we could use them for some experiments.
Right, and you do see elements of his like berserker rage, right? Like he gets into fights and he'll stop like half a dozen people.
Sure, yeah.
When she first meets him, hadn't he taken down like an entire contingent of police officers? And when the one guy shows up and, he just, basically annihilates the heck out of that guy.
Right.
But when they're kind of in the...
And is that because he's a criminal and he has a criminal mind? Or is that because he grew up in a post-apocalyptic world and had to survive?
Right.
And so he's used violence in the past to survive, and maybe that's the only reason he's a prisoner, is because he did some things he had to do to survive, and
Well, and
somebody didn't like that.
I'm thinking of the plot line. It's kind of like an influence on, that you see in like Star Trek: The Next Generation. This wouldn't be an influence on that. It would be vice versa.
Sure.
But like the one with the Roga Danar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, conditioned to be soldiers and altered and all that kind of stuff. And then, okay, well, we're just going to lock them up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of, and that's a commentary. Oh, interesting. That's stuff that hits home for me. I guess I would just say it that way.
Yeah.
Fascinating movie. I love it.
No, I really enjoy this movie. And just a couple of quick comments before we move on to 3 questions or anything else. I think that Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt, both of them, this is not their typical kind of movie. Like Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt, I think up to this point, are not known for playing characters that are psychologically damaged and tortured.
Okay.
You don't see, I mean, Bruce Willis, action movies, he's been in comedies, he's been in action movies. So physically has, physically painful parts that he plays. But I think he does a really nice job in this one of the kind of the psychological aspect of it. And I think it's a little bit outside what his usual acting range would have seemed up to this point. But I think he does a great job with it. And I think Brad Pitt, especially in those early scenes when he's young Jeffrey and he's in the asylum, he does an amazing job.
Oh, fantastic.
Now, I did. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to just talk more about what I really enjoyed with the movie, but I don't want to
go ahead.
off your question if it was going to go along with that. I really, really like that there's really an A story, a B story, and a C story. And at any given time, I'm not sure which one is the A story, which one is the B story, and which one is the C story.
Sure, yeah.
Right? A story, okay, guy coming from the future trying to figure out the army of the 12 monkeys and that. B story, the people in the present are trying to figure out who this guy is, right?
Yeah.
And like, all the clues and all that, and putting that whole thing together and trace him down. This guy's crazy, all that. The C story, or the first two combined, is the relationship between him and the psychiatrist, right? To where they're helping out each other, and she kind of comes over to his side on things, and he comes her way on things, and he's just like, hey, I'm not going back anymore. I've cut out my tooth. Well, he didn't cut out the tooth right away, but he's just like, yeah, I'm not going back anymore. I'm done. I'm here. You were right. I'm crazy. I was crazy. I don't believe this stuff. It doesn't exist. It doesn't, and then they're looking for all these signs. Like before, he was looking out for all these signs to prove it to her, but then, and it's really like, kind of a little bit of a crazy sci-fi way, kind of like a relationship. He's coming from one direction, she's coming from the other. They both try to meet in the middle, but they end up crisscrossing. Now she's saying, well, hey, we're looking for all this evidence of the 12 monkeys and everything like that. And you disappeared out of the river. How did you disappear from the river? Like, what the heck? I found you in a World War I picture. And then he meets her on the other side and says, hey, I was crazy. No, that's all made up. That's not true. That's not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just find that combined with, okay, the people in the future trying to figure out the mystery, and then the people in the present, or I guess it would be the past, are trying to figure out the mystery of this guy. And then all the while, it's a misdirect because the audience, like, we weren't looking for the army of the 12 monkeys. We're looking for this other guy. And I'm just, like you mentioned, loving time travel. So that was my first thought, was the 3 different plot lines that we're going. But also, I love those little clues that are like, bum, 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 kind of thing, where, okay, he ends up back in World War I, and then she sees a picture of him.
Yeah.
Holy Moses. Oh my gosh. What the, hey, we dug a shell out of him. It's an antique. Wait, what? Okay, we sent him back. He's got to call this phone number. And it ends up being like this person picks up, and it's just like, okay, well, that didn't work. All right, maybe I am crazy. And then all of a sudden, like, you hear the message in the future, kind of like a crazed person talking before, you know what I'm saying? About like, we left this message. Does this mean anything? And even on this rewatch, I didn't fully process that that was her that had left the message. And then all of a sudden she goes back and says, "You're never going to believe it. It's just an answering machine. It blah, blah." And she's all like, "We are crazy." And that's the celebration, is that we're crazy. You know, we are crazy. We are insane. This doesn't exist. And then she starts saying the message, and he looks at her, and then he repeats it. And it's like, oh my gosh, that is so good. And then hold on. How cool is it that like you just leave a message at a carpet company and that's what they pick up in the future? And they don't explain it. Like, they really don't even explain the method of how the time travel works. Very much like in Terminator, right? All you know is this thing comes back from the future. But you don't quite know the mechanics of it till later. That is so cool. And even like the leaving the message on the answering machine, that's like the, what was that movie about the guy it was about fighting, not fire. Was it fighting fire or something, where he etches things in his, spoilers for any movie about fire and future and travel, sorry, but like he etches something in the desk, and then later on they're like sitting there and the etching is appearing in the desk, and he's sending messages to the future with that. I love it. I love it.
I
love
think I
that
know what
stuff.
you're talking about.
I love that stuff. And then, I mean, right on down to, you know, Wayne's World, or not Wayne's World, Bill and Ted, spoilers. Remember a trash can, right?
Don't forget the trash can.
That stuff, that is just so, I love that. And okay, I don't know temporal mechanics, right? If that's how things work like that, but it's just, it's cool because it's fun sci-fi and it makes you think. And two, it's like figuring out clues and how do we leave messages for people. And it's very like almost spy oriented. Anyways, I just, this movie just really ticks a whole lot of boxes of awesome. And I really like the 3 plot threads. I really like the way they leave messages, and they don't explain the mechanics of it. Right? Like, that's so cool. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep going with it too, because even this I love. And this was a thing that was explored in Star Trek Voyager. You get done with the whole story, and then suddenly, oh man, the Army of the 12 Monkeys. That wasn't it at all. That was completely wrong. That was a bunch of malarkey. They were just these kids doing this other thing. But the future, you know, the fog of war, the fog of history, we just kind of reassign it and say, oh, well, they were involved and that's who we're investigating. And it makes me think of that Star Trek Voyager episode, spoilers, where like the doctor gets turned back on, like an emergency version of the doctor.
Yes, and it's like 800 years in the future or something.
Yeah, way in the future. And the planet was like, it was kind of a complex plot, but it was basically the Voyager was like, at this time, way in the future, was like, they thought the Voyager were conquerors because they helped this other group. And there was this whole museum that had history wrong. And that's not the way the Voyager was. And he's like, that's not what my friends did. This isn't what we did. This isn't correct at all. But, you know, through history, things just kind of, the game of telephone, history is written by the victors. So that's how they remembered it. And then he gets done and he has to set all that right. But by then, the people that were oppressed were now in control. And the reason that they rewrote the history was because they were trying to kind of exact their pound of flesh from their former captors and all that. But they had, you remember that plot line? But that theme comes out in this too, is like, guys, we had it totally wrong because we knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that's the way history was. And so that begins to call into question, well, how many truths do we hold to be evident that aren't, right? Like, that is just a rabbit hole that I love to go down, that I love to mentally go down.
So before we get into 3 questions, I want to talk a little bit about the 12 Monkeys TV show, because I think you really, based on everything you just said, I think you will love this TV show.
Oh my gosh. Lay it on me.
Just to give you a couple little tastes right here. 2 of the showrunners, at least 2 of the showrunners for season 1 and seasons 2 and 3 of the show, Natalie, I hope I'm saying her last name right, Chaidez, was the showrunner for season 1 of the 12 Monkeys TV show. And she was also known for being a writer and producer on the TV series Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. She was, I believe, a producer on that show Heroes, from back in the early 2000s with all the superheroes. Seasons 2 and 3 of the series, Terry Matalas was the showrunner, and he was a production assistant on Voyager. He was a writer on Star Trek Enterprise. He was the showrunner for Picard seasons 2 and 3. Some of the actors that are in the 12 Monkeys TV show are actors that you've seen in other places. Captain Shaw, I love that guy. Captain Shaw on Picard.
Yes,
And
Captain Shaw was.
I'm blanking on the actor's name, but shoot, what was his name?
He was a really well-written character.
Yes.
That guy was awesome.
Yeah. That actor, it's going to drive me nuts that I'm not going to remember what his name is, so I'm going to try to find him real quick. Todd Stashwick is his name. He plays a character in the 12 Monkeys TV series, and there's going to be a few other people that you would see in the TV series that you might recognize from other things. They've swapped genders for the Goins character, the one who's in the asylum. It's Jennifer Goins in the TV show, and she is a fun character. She's quirky, she's weird. She kind of comes across as crazy, but she's also probably a genius. And a couple of ways in which the show and the movie are different, and this is why I think knowing the things that you enjoy, I'll tell you about some of the differences, and I think that's why I think you will really enjoy the TV show.
All right.
So basically, the movie obviously is he's sent back in time to try to stop a plague or investigate a plague that's going to wipe out humanity. The TV series starts that way. Same name, James Cole. He is sent back in time to stop the virus, but then the story ends up evolving into kind of this complex war across time. It's almost like a time travel war against a group called the Army of the 12 Monkeys. And in the TV series, it really and truly is a pretty intimidating and at times horrifying Army of the 12 Monkeys and the kind of control they seem to have over time. And the time travel kind of in the show kind of messes with your head a little bit because there's a lot of paradoxes going on, but it's more of a conventional kind of sci-fi thriller show. It's a little bit more, it's less grimy and less Terry Gilliam style, more like the sleek serialized TV kind of style.
Okay.
It's more kind of the main character, Bruce Willis is kind of this haunted, broken man. The James Cole of the series is a little bit more heroic, a little bit more action oriented. You've got more time to kind of develop his character over the 4 seasons. Her name is Cassandra Rayleigh in the TV show, so they changed her name a little bit, but she actually becomes a kind of like a co-lead in the show. She is kind of a scientist turned time travel partner. She ends up time traveling with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this isn't like a continuation like
No.
Stargate SG-1. This is hey, we're going to take this concept and just kind of change it up a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost as if the first few episodes of season 1 are kind of a retelling, because I remember starting to watch this because it has almost a feel. I was trying to find out, are any of the people involved in these same shows? And the Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles, yes. The one that I thought maybe there were some connections, but I haven't in the very little bit I've tried to research. It has a feel of the things I really liked about the early 2000s Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, okay.
Like if you were to take a little bit of if you ever watched the Terminator TV show, take a little bit of Terminator, take a little bit of Battlestar Galactica, and take a little bit of the concept of 12 Monkeys and turn that into a TV series, that's what this is.
That's awesome.
And then things kind of advance. I don't want to give away too much, but kind of as the story goes on, after those first few episodes, you're like, hey, I've seen the movie 12 Monkeys. I know how this is going to go. After those first few episodes, you're like, all right, I have no clue how things are going to go now. Like I'm just along for the ride because I thought it was going to go this way. It's definitely not going this way. And it even gets to the point where by the time you get to a certain point in the show, it's like, virus? What virus? We're not even like, viruses that wipe out humanity are piddly little things compared to what we've got going on now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like things escalate quickly.
Got it.
But yeah,
That's very cool.
I think you would really, really enjoy. I'm trying to see if I can find if it's. I don't think it's streaming. Is it streaming free anywhere? I feel like at one point in time it was on Hulu, but I don't know if it's on Hulu anymore. I'm seeing that it looks like at this point. It looks like at this point it might be paid only.
Mm-hmm.
Like through Apple TV or Amazon. But you know what? Go to your library. I bet your library will have copies of the DVDs.
Cool.
Or you can
this.
interlibrary loan. But yeah, no, I think you'd really enjoy it. Yeah, it gets pretty crazy. And especially actually I take that back. There have to be some connections to Battlestar Galactica, because in some of the later seasons, there are some actors that show up that were prominent actors in Battlestar Galactica.
Awesome.
So there have to be some kind of connections there beyond that, because they used some of the same people.
Got it.
But yeah, TV show was awesome. All right. Anything else before we jump into 3 questions?
No, man, I said my piece.
Okay. All right. It's time, pun intended, for 3 questions.
I see what you did there.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right. 3 questions. Question number 1. If you could go back in time and give your past self one warning, what would it be?
Okay, this one's easy.
Yeah.
I would warn myself not to miss the next 35 years of not riding horses. I would go back and I would warn myself that I need to go up the street to Island Lake, Illinois, to this wonderful place called Timmerman's Ranch and Saddle Shop, and I would have signed up for horseback riding lessons like at the youngest possible age.
Nice.
Easy. Don't even need to give it a second thought.
Yeah.
That, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It is awesome. Riding horses is awesome. And this place it's like an hour from my current house.
Yeah.
It is, I'm sorry, wait, I said an hour. That is so wrong. It is a mile from my current house.
Oh, that's very different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite different. An hour. Jeez. It is like in my backyard. Yeah. And it is just this incredible. Riding horses is amazing. And this place is awesome. And I would go back and warn myself.
And that's kind of something that you and your whole family have gotten in on the enjoyment of that.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. And it's awesome. Yeah. So yes, that is what I would have gone back when I can. As soon as I can figure that out, I would time travel, go back. That is what has to change.
Yeah. Yeah. I would see, partly I look at this and I go, well, how much would I want to change? How much would I want to actually warn myself of? Because if I warn myself of too many things, like if I warn myself and say, hey, your dad's not going to be around for as many years as you think, then does that affect my ability to enjoy the time that I do have? You know, does that color and does that taint that if I only know, I've got up until this period of time, will that always be in the back of your mind? So I kind of went a little bit more of the semi-serious, semi-kidding route, and my answer was simply buy stock in Apple.
That's a good one.
That's pretty much it. I don't know if I've told you guys. I feel like I might have told this story one time before on the pod. After my dad passed, we were kind of cleaning out his office in their house, and we were cleaning out his desk, and there was a letter in there that I don't know if my mom got a hold of it first or my sister or somebody got a hold of it first, and they started reading this letter. And they basically, and I'm like sitting there like sorting through some of his books and his CDs like on the other side of the room. And all of a sudden, whoever's reading it goes, "Oh my God. Oh my God. This letter is from Apple and your dad bought Apple stock years ago. And I was like, wait, what? They're like,
hold on.
They're like, yeah. In this letter, like right here at the bottom of the letter, it says there's like 1.4 million in it. And I'm like, wait, what? Hold on. And so I'm like, well, let me see the letter. And so we grab the letter and we're looking at it. And sure enough, it says, you know, here's how many shares, here's the value of the stock when it was first purchased, and what year it was purchased, and here is the value of the stock now. And I'm looking at this, I'm going, you have got to be kidding me. But then I go through and I start reading the letter a little bit more carefully. And it was some like stockbroker who had reached out, had sent letters to people and basically said, hey, my track record for finding good stocks is so great that if you had worked with me in the late 80s, I would have told you to buy this, and this is how much you would have now. You should work with me now. I'm like, God bless it.
I will never work with you just on principle of anger right now.
First of all, no. I will never buy anything from you now, ever again. Second of all, nope. Sorry, kids, we're back to beans and rice and grilled cheese sandwiches.
Yeah, you're like you're deleting all those emails you were going to send to various bosses and all that kind of thing.
I had a lot of 2-week notice messages just already playing through my head.
That is awesome. That is beyond awesome.
So that's where we sit now. So yes, mine would be go back in time and buy some Apple stock.
Buy some Apple stock. Yeah. That's awesome.
Question number 2. What's your favorite plague survival movie, book, or show?
Oh, man. Are you going to throw heavy things at my head if I say The Naked Now? Or what was...
No. No, that's fine.
Come on, man. That's the origin of the drunk Shimoda.
Yeah, that's fine.
John, you kind of had the same tone of voice as when I tried to list Cool as Ice as one of our refresh movies.
Well, I had to, like, my brain did grind to a halt there for a second. I was like, wait a minute, think about it. No, it's okay. No, it's fine. Okay. Your question, your response is fully functional in multiple techniques.
Plague survival. I'll be honest with you. This one's a struggle because they kind of give me the heebie-jeebies. You know,
it's not really your forte. Yeah.
It's not really my forte because I'm always just like, I know, and what you're going to say is like, well, that's why Alien 3, and when you win, you lose, and do you really get the whole, and I don't, yeah, I see your nod, I feel your look. So I don't know, I kind of got fixated on The Naked Now, and I'm like, just the impact of saying that.
I feel like in the span of like the last 5 seconds, there was a drive-by Pat-splaining just then.
Was it really?
I felt a little bit like it.
We're gonna have to go back and see.
I felt a slight burn just passing by the side of my face. It got warmer there for a second.
Well, there's a lot I can't say, but we're trying to keep this clean. So I don't know. I think honestly, I guess I would probably say I Am Legend. I really like that show.
Yeah.
Or movie, I should say. I like it. I like how they unfold it. I like how they storytell it. That would probably be my honest answer.
Yeah.
Or my serious answer. Yeah. Let me stick with that. Let me hear what you got to say, and then I'll see if I've got any honorable mentions.
Okay. All right. I struggle a bit with this one. Most of my answers are kind of along the zombie apocalypse kind of vibe.
Okay.
Although this one, like this movie is pretty high up there on plague survival stories. I listed as kind of some runners up. I listed, actually as a runner up, I listed kind of The Walking Dead, the TV series.
Okay.
And the comic. Actually, maybe even the comic more so than the series. Night of the Living Dead. I might go with that one because that's like the original black and white, old school Night of the Living Dead. I may go with that as my answer. The other one I want to throw out there because at the time I read it, it was so very different than all the other stories in the other comics that I had read. There was a stretch of time where Batman was dealing in the Batman comics. He was dealing with a plague that was unleashed, I believe, by Ra's al Ghul. And it was like actually killing people. and characters that you didn't think were going to get sick were getting sick and they were dying. And there was a point at which Robin got infected by it and you thought Robin was going to die. And it was like, well, how does Batman, like Batman usually does detective-y things, but then also punches people, and you can't punch a virus. So how's he going to deal with this? And there doesn't seem to be any kind of cure for this thing at all. So I remember that actually being kind of a fun story. That was around the same era as one of my other Batman stories I really enjoyed, when there's a massive earthquake that basically decimates Gotham City, and the whole city kind of devolves into various gangs that have their own territory. And Batman kind of has his own gang to deal with the other, like the Penguin's gang and the Joker's gang, and that one was called, what was that one called? That was, oh shoot, I'm going to totally blank out on the name right now. But yes, anyway, really, really enjoyed that. There were a bunch of Batman stories kind of in that era of the mid to late 90s. It was after the time where, you know, Bane had broken his back, and you had a whole bunch of other Batman stories. And this one was just different. The one, it was called Batman Contagion.
Okay.
And it was, I remember I'm reading this as a teenager. I'm like, this is creepy. Like, sure, Batman has some creepy villains, and there's, you know, a lot of his villains are very psychological, but I'm like, this is kind of creepy. Like, people are bleeding out of their eyes, and it's weird.
This is not the normal kind of behavior.
No, this is not my normal Batman comic. And I enjoy might not be the right word, but I'm intrigued by it. And I'm going to continue buying the issues because I kind of want to know where this goes. I'm intrigued. But I think my ultimate answer is going to be Night of the Living Dead. Like, it's a classic. That's what I'm going to go with. But I Am Legend is another. Actually, I was reading something the other day, and that popped up, and I was like, I want to rewatch that again because it's been a while.
That might have to be the rewatch tonight.
Yeah. All right, and question number 3, and this was kind of a tough one too. At their peak, who was the best, Bruce Willis or Brad Pitt?
Oh, easy. Yes.
Pat just rejected your question. But you rejected in the affirmative, if that's possible. Yeah. I'm going to try to make a decision here. And I'm going to say Brad Pitt. Because I really, really enjoy Bruce Willis. The Die Hard movies, Die Hard 2, Die Hard with Vengeance. That's about where I usually stop watching those. My wife and I, for a stretch of time, his kind of romantic comedy with Michelle Pfeiffer called The Story of Us. That was like one of our favorite movies for many, many, many years, you know, and then just a lot of his other stuff that he in Pulp Fiction and 12 Monkeys and all these other movies. But the
Sixth Sense, Unbroken.
Sixth Sense, Unbroken. I feel like the ones that were maybe bigger, influential movie-going experiences for me have been some of the ones that Brad Pitt was in, like Fight Club. Like that, the first time I watched Fight Club, that one blew me away. There are very few times, I can only think of maybe, I could count on one hand the number of movies that I watched and then immediately said, I need to watch that again right now. And Fight Club was one of those. Like Fight Club, we watched it and I'm like, hold on, how fast can we rewind this VHS? 30, 60 seconds? Okay, go, do it now. We're watching this again. And we did. We rewound it and we watched it again immediately after. So I think of that. I think of some of the ones that I listed earlier. I think of that. You know, I think of Interview with the Vampire. I think of, oh gosh, why am I blanking now? 7. I think of this one. It just, I don't know. There's just, 7 was another one. Like watching 7, I was like, good Lord, I don't think I've ever, and maybe for good reason, I don't think I've ever seen a movie like this. This is crazy. This is insane. This is intense. So I think maybe the more impactful movies have been, I love Bruce Willis's stuff, but maybe the ones that impacted me more tended to be Brad Pitt movies.
Okay.
So I'm going to say for me, he inches out the Bruce Willis just ever so slightly.
Yeah. See, it'd be interesting because Dennis has almost the exact same thing with Sixth Sense. When he first saw Sixth Sense, and Dennis prides himself on saying, you know, how could I improve this? How could I do this movie better?
Right. Yeah.
You know, and he really, like, whenever Dennis pans is kind of a strong word, but if he was going to pan a movie, he would always ask himself the question. He'll always ask, okay, what could I have done better?
Right.
Like, what would I have changed? You know, and he can really, well, you know, I mean, the guy, he could do that. He can answer that question, right?
Right.
But I remember Sixth Sense, when he saw it, he's like, okay, wait a minute, something had to do it. I want to say he tried to do the same thing. He saw it in the theater and then wanted to go right back in and see it again.
Oh yeah.
But if I remember the story right, I think he was on a date and he couldn't convince the girl to do it or something, or he went back the next day, or when the date was done, he went back and saw it, or there's some fun story from, you know, Dennis History 101. But Dennis had the same reaction to Sixth Sense. Like, okay, somehow they tipped that off somehow. And he's just like, no, he doesn't, you know, that movie keeps you going the whole way. So it's interesting hearing you say that, because that's the other thing about like Fight Club, right? Like okay, what's the tip off and all that, which it's, you know, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I really like Bruce. I really like, well, a lot of that M. Night Shyamalan stuff, right? Like Sixth Sense, Unbroken.
Yes.
Obviously Die Hard. Die Hard's one of my favorites of all time. But you're right. I mean, Brad Pitt. And it's funny because early Brad Pitt, like a lot of what we're watching right now, I remember I saw 12 Monkeys a little bit later on, but like a lot of the ones I think of, like, it's the Ocean's movie, right? It's just, he is so good in the Ocean movies. And it's a different kind of so good, right? Like it's more of a comedic role. I think he's amazing in Fury. In Fury.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that one about the tank.
Yeah. Have I? That's a good question.
It's, you know, it's,
I feel like I have.
You're not gonna, you're not going to be laughing for the next, or happy for the next 2.5 hours. But boy, that's good. And I'm just going to preemptively saying one of my favorite movies of all time is getting released this summer that I haven't seen yet. But, you know, he's starring in F1.
Yes.
And I think I think he's going to do a fantastic job with that too. So, yeah, Brad Pitt, just amazing as well. Yes, I'm going back to my answer. Right? My answer has not changed. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I went to go look at the list. I'm like, what else am I forgetting that was around, especially around this time? I feel like just as he's up and coming, like starting in the mid 90s, and the one I was blanking out on the name was Legends of the Fall. And so I'm looking back at the list, and I'm glad I said at their peak who was the best, because then that means I get to ignore Cool World from 1992, which is one of the worst piles of crap ever. But starting with Interview with the Vampire in 94, we had Interview with the Vampire, Legends of the Fall, 7, 12 Monkeys, Sleepers, The Devil's Own, 7 Years in Tibet, Meet Joe Black, Fight Club, Snatch, Spy Game, Ocean's 11.
Spy Game.
Yeah.
I can't. When do we get to do that one?
Spy Game is 2001.
Okay.
So it'll be a few years, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, that whole stretch of, you know, and not that Bruce Willis doesn't have stretches of movies that I enjoy too, but that whole stretch from like the mid 90s, especially this would have been like prime movie going time for John, like high school and college, prime movie going time. And that would have been, I think I might have seen every single one of those movies in the theater on his list. From 94 to 2001 or 2002. Yeah, Ocean's 11 was 2001. Troy was 2004. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is 2005. Yep.
Troy. I forgot about Troy. God, I had a lot of fun with Troy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I think just by the slightest hair that Bruce Willis does not have on his head, I think Brad Pitt just inches it out for me just very, very barely.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I can't choose, man. I can't choose.
Yes, to echo your answer, basically yes.
Yes.
No.
Troy's pretty sweet though. Troy's pretty sweet. Is there nobody else? Is there nobody else? I wouldn't want to face him. That's why no one will remember your name. I love that line.
Yep.
I use that line. Dad, I really don't want to go down and clean up my room. That's why no one will remember your name. I just, I'm gonna watch Troy tonight. Troy and I Am Legend. That's
Troy
a double. It's
yeah,
summer.
You got quite I guess you're not going anywhere tomorrow, so.
Well, yeah, but all I got to do is get in the car and ride along. So I mean,
that's fine. Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for this one. We are in June, which is our Monkey Business Month. Our Patreon is To Die For from 1995. Our Patreon short is Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead from 1995. So I guess you can, after To Die For, you can die and then go to Denver, and then you've got things to do. And then our regular episodes this month have been Jumanji, and then this one is 12 Monkeys. And then in a few days, Repo Man is our 10th anniversary rewatch that'll be coming out. And then we'll finish out the month with Outbreak and Congo. So a bunch of monkey movies this month. So yeah, good times, good stuff coming up. Really looking forward to talking Repo Man, which, pulling back the curtain, we're going to do here in just a few minutes. And then that's going to come out here in a few days after this episode comes out. So looking forward to that one too. So thank you, Pat, for being here for 12 Monkeys with me.
Thank you, John. Thank you, listening audience. Thank you to all our patrons that support us. Thanks to everybody checking it out.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And like I said before, Pat, I think you will, but I think anybody who enjoys the 12 Monkeys movie, definitely try to go check out that TV series, because I think you'll enjoy that as well.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. And have a Merry Christmas.
Bring the lights down low, it's time to show. Lights, camera, you know what we mean. Behold the magic of the silver screen. Some movies rock, some movies shock. They're powerful, alright. We cover them all on your favorite part. So many movies we can choose. Even when you win, you lose. Life moves pretty fast. Some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math. It's the 30-something movie podcast. Be excellent to each other. Please add a word to your mother. They're from the best decades. Movie magic that never fades. Lightsabers clash, phasers set to stun. Action packed from dusk till dawn. We have deep thoughts and questions three. Come share our love of the movies we see. Life moves pretty fast. Some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood.
I don't know. Maybe you guys really are just a carpet cleaning company.